we'll take a lunch break. I hope not to have it to be a working lunch, depending on how well we do on time getting through some of these topics. So Sophie's going to be capturing these discussion items and likely putting them into two buckets. One, things that don't have money to them, that just take staff time, that are policy directives. And the other is potentially a policy directive or action that's going to take money in a future budget. And then at the end of the day, you guys will go through a prioritization process like we did it similar to other retreats, and to prioritize that. And we were very fortunate in the last budget that we had enough money to fund all of the things that you saw as priorities, but that isn't always the case. So we want to make sure that we get to the things that are your biggest priorities first as we try to develop the budget, our next biennial budget. So Jay?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And I'm going to kind of rely on John on this one. One of the things that's concerned me, and I kind of want to lead into this discussion about it as we move forward, is like when we looked at the last one about projects, like we had REIT now in several places.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that the finance committee and yourself and Noah are extremely conservative.
Mm-hmm.
But I get concerned that, we'll be, not that we're putting stuff up against the wall and say, hey, yeah, we'll put it with REIT stuff and or other funds coming in. But it's always one of my concerns that everything we talk about is sustainable, for that period of time, especially when we go into bodies that we'll be talking about. So I just want to get that.
I can reassure you, I'm a reformed banker.
I know.
Like that.
Yeah.
And I'm very conservative in nature. I mean, we need to be very prudent when we borrow money, but when you can borrow money at 1% or less for a 20 to 50 year life cycle item, you should do that, because inflation, we just got word, was 8%.
As we already know.
So if waiting to save that money to build that thing would potentially be foolish. So
No, and I'm not going on there. I just want to make sure that we always take a look about where it's coming from.
Absolutely. And
Well, one of the things that I would add on to what I heard you say was there's a difference between a capital investment versus an ongoing operating expense.
Exactly.
And when you start talking about staffing, that's an ongoing operating expense. If you're talking about buying a widget, let's go borrow the money and
yeah,
buy the widget. So I appreciate what you're saying, and that's something that I'm kind of like Rob. I'm not a reformed banker, but I'm pretty conservative.
Well, you are here.
So I want to make sure that we know that it's going to be sustainable, whether it is a capital investment, because even capital investment comes with operating expenses sometimes. Once you build it, you got to maintain it and operate it. So,
but I also want to commend the mayor and the council, because of the fact is that a lot of agreements we've done to move some of these capital ones forward by working with is a different way of, our developers. Partnerships. It has been advantageous to the city. So I say, well done to you, well done, finance committee. If we keep doing those partnerships, it's awesome.
We have some coming forward. And to your point, we, as you know, and for the benefit of the public, there are pockets of dollars that are restrictive for certain purposes, and REIT's one of them. Our capital utility funds have their own restricted aspects of it. There's criminal justice money that can only be spent on police activities, certain police activities. So I know REIT look in the future is the solution to some of these things like the community center, but right now we're pledging 100% of our REIT to the pathway, and that was the directive that came from the last retreat we had. And I hope that direction doesn't change, because we have the cash right now, we believe, for all of that right-of-way purchase. And the next thing we have to save for is the difference in the construction cost, because this has taken many more years than we thought. We have the gas tax money coming that is going to fund most of it. But we're going to have a difference, and we need to save for those dollars and want to pay for it in cash.
Thank you, Mayor.
And Mayor, I just want to make sure everyone knows that the back of your agenda is the list of the items that the mayor will be talking about.
It's on the back of the agenda. So let's get rolling on here. So as I talked about the two buckets, And and Fred advocated that we jump around on this order. I'm kind of we're gonna get to all of these things, I assure you, and some of them lead into others, so I was kind of purposeful in how I structured the agenda, so if you wouldn't mind indulging. So Fred brought up an item related to election items, the election process, and I think we all can acknowledge that whether it's in city elections or somewhere here in Kitsap County, we have a candidate that shouldn't be running because they don't live where they say they live. And that is outside, that process is very explicitly called out in RCW. And then the county elections department that we have to pay our share of is responsible for overseeing that. But unless somebody files an appeal, and those don't happen too often, we saw one in the last election that related to a school board position, somebody's got to file an appeal. If you don't think somebody lives where they say they do, the process is you have to file an appeal, you just can't complain about it, and prove that they don't live where they say they do. And then there's a process for that is dealt with by the elections. We don't, other than we host an event here. Brandy calls it throw your hat in the ring, I think, every 2 years, to encourage people to file what it means to be an elected official, what PVC requirements, and try to educate people the best we can. But that's the limit to our role in that. And we can't pass additional rules or regulations about candidacy because it's covered explicitly in an RCW. So did that answer your question, Fred, or
Actually, what I was advocating for was simply a page on the website explaining basically what you've said, that this is the requirements that we have. I think that when we say that it's in the RCW, that is a true statement, but it's not what I call user friendly. What I'm hoping for is just a statement saying we need to be a resident of the city for a year. And then we can explain what that means. Like, are you also a registered voter for a year before you file? There may be some.
And I don't believe that's
If
part.
that's
I don't
true.
believe that to be the case.
Yeah.
You have to,
Okay.
there is a residence requirement. You do have to be a registered
Okay.
voter, but I think you could register to vote. And I don't have any problem at all when it comes time, we hand the fact sheet out at those events. There's nothing wrong with putting that fact sheet on our webpage,
Yeah.
the month before the elections.
Were you
So
thinking of
you could-
residency requirements for like
Becoming
other, like planning
an
commission or?
No, just for being a city council member.
Yes.
And reminding people that it has to be their residence and not their business.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
there are plenty of
There's the
people
other one,
who
yeah.
had businesses here. And
And they feel
Yeah,
very strongly that
correct.
they should have a
And
voice.
we've
That
had
isn't-
one the last two
that isn't a
elections
residency.
file that I question whether he lives where he says he does, but unless you're willing to file an appeal, there's nothing we can do about it.
Is
So
that appeal process defined in state law?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes.
I was really impressed by the one that did happen, but I was also sort of depressed that he had to take a lot of effort. When he wrote the appeal, that he was actually the fact-finding agent. That's how it
Yeah,
seemed.
that's the.
That is,
what I'm saying
and you know what,
is
Fred? That is exactly the case because I have questioned residency to the elections before. And the response to me is, that is the address that they put on their candidacy statement and they signed the affidavit. So they're the ones that have, that's the only step that they take is they that declaration you sign when you file for office, that they're out after that. And then there's the appeal process, which then falls on the person filing the appeal to gather the evidence and submit it.
Just out of ignorance, I guess I could go look this up myself. Is there a definition of what residency means? Or
Yes,
what it is?
yes.
You could live on a boat in a marina and you're considered a resident, even though you're pick up and turn on your boat on, drive over to some other city and live there.
You have to be there for a year though, right?
Mhm,
You have to have proof that you've been there for a year.
Is that right?
mhm.
Well,
Well,
like appeal.
you're
laws.
signing an affidavit. You don't have to, You don't have to provide any
You just have
proof.
to attest to it.
It's for you, for the person filing the appeal to provide the proof that they didn't.
Oh, my word, see.
Yeah, so it's, and then you're the one making a stink about it. So it's not ideal, but that's the rules.
Yeah, and I'm just hoping that we just tell people these are the rules. It's not that you get your mail at your business or your voter ballot at business.
I think you're bringing a good point with the business address, because I know there's a lot of folks that will be.
Yeah. But they can't,
I
they
have a
can't,
business address in the city, and I should,
Yeah.
yeah.
and they're smarter than that. They're not doing that. They're using a residential address.
Well, I'm not suggesting pass, I'm just saying that there are many times where
Yeah.
somebody has business things. I have just as much right as a citizen.
Yeah. So from a policy directive, then to add, the clerk's office will add the voters flyer to the website,
Yes,
in the weeks or month ahead of filing period.
with a definition that
Well,
it's a
we have a
residence.
fact sheet already that we
And
we
the
hand out.
RCW, people can just take a look at the RCW.
Yeah, we'll cite all the
If they know
rules
what
and
that
we
RCW.
we've got a canned fact sheet we had out at that event. Let's get it out, that information out sooner. Okay, there we go. All right, ready to move on? Okay, Fred also brought up public comment at council meetings. We have 2 public comment periods, one at the beginning of the meeting, as you know, for items on the agenda, you have 3 minutes. There's agencies that are boards that I sit on that are 2 minutes, that have 1 public comment period. I'm not advocating to change it. I think really it's only an issue during silly season. That lasts 6 months or so, but it's your meeting. And if you guys want to change our structure and how we have public comment, I'm here to listen.
I think it's got a lot of order having the comment period the way it is now, that people comment on only items in the agenda in the beginning. And then anybody can comment at the end, and they don't have to be there for the whole meeting. They can be there, come in later, especially with Zoom. So I don't think that's hurting anybody. But remembering from the days when we did not have that rule in place, and it was took up a lot of time, and it was actually really broke up the momentum of getting business done. I think so. I like what we have now.
One thing we could do that I see too at Public Health Board, matter of fact, when we were talking about vaccines and masks for a long time, we capped public comment to 15 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
And however many people can get into that period. It's your meeting though. I'm not advocating for anything.
I like the way we're doing it now. I like the continuity that we address city business first and then have open season afterwards. I would not want to cap it at the beginning because I think that would cause more issues and people that know when the periods are have a pretty good idea. Our meetings, run. I mean, you can almost time clockwork about when you can do that second one. So I like what we're doing and I'd like to continue it.
But Fred, what are you hearing out there? What's the?
We've heard from people who couldn't wait till the end of the meeting to bring up what they wanted. I think there was someone with Fathoms, for example, and they had an issue, and they had to wait for a very long meeting until the second commentary at the end. I don't know this. I agree with Cindy that it certainly has been streamlined the way it has been, but I don't know.
Was that a recent experience during
That was
COVID?
last
Okay.
year.
Silly season.
Well,
So,
go ahead.
well, you recall, I was an advocate of allowing anybody to testify on anything at the beginning of our meetings, and that was some years ago, and I didn't prevail on that, and that was fine. But I feel like what we have now is working with the hybrid meetings. People, and I don't want to cap it, and I think 3 minutes is fine. It's often not enough for what people have to say, but
Sometimes it's painfully long, huh?
yeah, I get that. But I think now that people can be at home in their pajamas, kind of one ear to the meeting and realize that the second comment period is coming up, I think we've mitigated a lot of those initial concerns. about making people come here and have to sit. And I remember one meeting where a lady said, I got to go home and take care of kids. I wanted to testify, but I can't. Well, that's off the table with the hybrid meeting approach. So I'm happy with how we're doing it now, and I don't want to cap it.
Other thoughts?
I'm going to say that I'm very happy with the way it works now. I think it makes a lot of sense. And I always try to remind myself when we went through the training of parliamentary procedures, this is the council's meeting, and the purpose of this meeting is to do the business of the city. Now, one could argue when a citizen brings something to the city, it's business of the city, but there's also a process for which I think we should keep this business organized. They can, I mean, years ago, it used to be that the constituent would bring an issue, and it was like during our agenda where we have good in the orders, one of us could bring up the issue and have it put on a future committee discussion or a future council meeting. Or a citizen could send a letter or an email that says, here's my issue, and then we could deal with it appropriately, not just somebody walks in and expects to deal with it right then and there. And I know people get frustrated sometimes because we sit there like, 7 bumps on the log and barely say thank you for your comments, so we don't respond because it's not really the time and place to do that. So I like what we're doing. I think it works well. As you indicated in the past during silly season, I mean, people use this as a forum to promote their candidacy or use this forum to take shots at whoever somebody's running against, and it was just,
It's what just comes with the territory. It just is.
yeah.
And I, some people think it's question and answers, and I really try to
Yeah,
remind people at times, as you're aware, that this is public comment period. It's for you to make a statement or bring something to the council's attention. It's not a back and forth and question and answer.
I would suggest that maybe one thing, because I know people do get frustrated sometimes when they come and they expect an answer and we're not getting an answer. And I know the staff a lot of times will respond to those
Correct.
later. We and the community necessarily don't see that they were responded to. So having some kind of a,
How about as a policy directive here that staff, those situations where staff has responded to a complaint or a concern and they resolved it when they give their staff reports at a future council meeting, that they address that and how it was resolved?
either
Or wasn't resolved, or what the outcome was?
I think it would be fine if you were just to say, at our last meeting, we had 3 questions posed, and I want you to know that the staff responded to those constituents. And I don't need to know how this was resolved, I just want to make sure.
Okay, so it's either myself or a director,
Yeah,
if they're the ones that handle it. I think we could do better in communicating there.
I think you presenting it would keep it more succinct, not to pick on any directors, but.
No, that's a very good
They
idea.
want to spend way more time on an issue
Yeah.
that really needs to be.
And also, I was saying also maybe a preface before the comment period about this is not a Q&A, it's not a back and forth. Then I think you do that sometimes.
I don't do it consistently.
Yeah.
It just depends on, Jerry and Harmon knows the rules,
Yeah.
but there's,
And we
there's
have
other
one
folks
person,
that,
so,
yeah.
Just to back up for a second, sorry.
Go ahead.
I think, I'm just trying to think over 4 years and not for a silly season. I would say that a lot of times we have opinions and commentary more so than actual issues. So I think what John was saying, that I think we had this, we had an issue brought up. last time.
Yeah, I'm not gonna
No,
respond to
yeah,
commentary, but
But that would be, great and solve some of our issue, because mostly it's about 90% plus is commentary, and that's fine too.
Yeah, I mean, then they get their forum, they get to share their opinion, great. But if they ask a question, I think they and everyone else who's watching they never got the question answered, so getting some kind of report back.
yeah,
Awesome.
on those.
Make it part of your mayor's
It's
report.
10% of what we get, but yeah, I'll do a better job.
is it possible to flag that with a caveat on our agendas as well, so that when the public looks at the agenda, they can maybe reshape what they're, I know it gets a little messy with.
Yeah, I just would rather make it part of my mayor's report,
Okay.
that
No, no, no.
I'll report
I'm
out.
talking about on the agenda, it just, for public comment, it will say, and not in these words, but this is not a Q&A session, this is just for us to listen to.
Yeah, we could put it,
Yeah. I think
add
that
it, so
would be
it's
better.
add a disclaimer to the,
Yeah.
to
So then
the
they
agenda
know that-
that reminding what's appropriate. I think there's a couple things you could do there. Reminding folks what appropriate behavior is and comments. Sometimes things get, you know, it comes with the territory for us to be attacked. It's not okay. And I won't accept it when they start attacking our staff. You know.
Yeah.
And if we don't protect our staff from that, they will find other places to work.
But
And I
you
think-
also have that fine line with freedom of speech, so.
Correct.
Yeah.
But
You can't shut somebody off just because you don't like what they're saying.
I'm not saying, when the language becomes vulgar, when it turns into personal attacks. Some other boards I'm on, PSRC in particular, they have a statement that they read at the beginning of public comment about personal attacks, you know.
But it's a reminder.
It's a reminder.
Not a requirement.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
But it's a reminder up front. Yeah.
I
so-
would just say, talk to Charlie. You know,
Yeah, so just,
Yeah.
you know, put something on the agenda there.
Yeah.
And then when we get into those times of year when we have robust people, a number of people that maybe it's read into the record from time to time to remind folks and that'll be. a good
Well,
job.
And those people are gonna be hard to corral no matter what, but for the average commenter, maybe they can reshape what they wanna say from asking questions to more just commentary. like we're
Yeah,
hoping.
Good point. Mark?
Something that I would like to see, and this, and I'm looking at it from a new citizen coming in for the first or second.
You got like 2 more
fifth
months to
time.
say you're the new guy.
No, I'm not saying it from me, but from a new citizen coming in to our meetings. Is there a way we can show, and you do a good job of this verbally, but on the agenda itself, okay, this first public comment is just for
It's
what's
on
on
the
the agenda,
Yep, it's on the
and the
agenda.
other one is the general.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Sorry.
I do.
I know you
remind
do a good
everybody
job of
every
that.
time.
But for somebody new coming in that wants to talk about whatever they want to talk about, at
And in
that
the
point,
past, when we've had folks in the audience and we're here early and I see somebody that I know they're, you know, because I kind of have an idea sometimes that people are going to come and what their issues are. I'll actually go out in the audience and say, hey, I know you're here to talk about X, Y, Z. That's not on the agenda tonight. So the moment in time to do that is here. And so I try to coach people where I can, if
But I'm
they're
talking-
willing to listen.
I'm talking about folks that are going to go on
I
our
know.
site and pull the agenda up, and then they can kind of judge when they need to come.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
this first public
it's
comment,
it's on the agenda,
Okay.
written that way.
So kind of, go ahead.
I was just wondering, do we like it when speakers identify themselves either with name and address? Especially with Zoom, sometimes we'll see it's just phone number or.
Yeah,
initials.
there's no requirement that they do
I don't
that.
think we require it.
Can we encourage them? Like, would you like to identify yourself and turn on your camera or something? It would make more
Our
effective
platform
testimony
doesn't
for
al-
them.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That's, we can't, I can ask, and I don't know that address is so.
I don't know that we care,
important.
but
You know, a name, I do ask for, can you identify, please identify yourself for the record is what I say.
especially during silly season, I just want to know, are they in the city or are they not?
Right.
I don't think we could require that though.
We can't require it at all, and I,
They don't want to
You
give.
did a good job at the beginning saying, if I remember correctly, it'd be nice to turn on your camera and.
Yeah. I have asked for that
Yeah.
in the past.
Well, there have been issues
And then I
in
had
the
to tell somebody
past.
to turn their camera off because they had a political statement on their.
When we're dealing with things like, you know, the origin of animals in pet stores.
Mhm.
You know, when you're having people come from other cities,
Mhm.
even other states, because they're part of an advocacy group, it's nice to know the origin. And we can have that, we can be more sensitive to that when we have issues like that.
Well, we can ask the question.
We can ask the question.
They
I
just
just-
don't have the answer.
You know what, and when we, I think the fireworks are gonna be contentious. And I've asked for that in the survey. It's a required field, your name and your address. So, and one of the questions is, are you a citizen? And then your name and your address. We're asking.
Yeah, I know.
Citizen, yeah, sorry, are you a citizen in the city of Port
But
Orchard?
planet.
Actually, the question is, do you live in the city of Port
Yeah,
Orchard?
and that's not the check.
Yeah, you check
Yeah,
yes or no, and
bars.
then you know that everybody that lives in South Kitsap believes they live in the city.
Yeah,
And even though if they don't, so
Well,
then that's
people
why I
will
asked,
allow it, they don't, but
yeah, but then I've got the name and the address field. So I think it's gonna be important when we're doing those public hearings to
Yeah.
ask, I'll ask, but once again, there's no requirement for them to provide it.
Are we able to sort through the responses to?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Yep, that's it. Now, depending on how many responses, if I have 5,000 responses, we don't have the staff time to sort to that, because it's gonna be a manual process.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you saying we're running out of time?
I'm just
Yeah.
looking at the list of the amount of time.
You're
we
doing
have
my
to
job, I was
follow.
just
Thank
telling
you.
you.
I
She's
just
supposed to
have-
kick me.
One last thing, and it's kind of a technology thing, but if you had the agenda where you could hover over, say, first comment period, and then there was an explanation box that popped up and said, this is what this is intended to do or accomplish.
Yeah, that's probably beyond
Okay.
our technology.
All right.
but We'll put a disclaimer on there though.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to the next item. Are we ready?
And just
Yeah.
for pacing, it's about 10 minutes per topic.
Okay. Some are gonna take more, some are gonna take less. I know you got the fairy
How
tale.
are we doing now that we have two? of them?
No, we've done two. Three is gonna be really quick. This is just informational. And I'm gonna talk more about various staffing needs that I see in later topics. And I want to point out one thing in particular. And this is our current org chart, and we have 98 employees today. And with Debbie, our HR manager, is gonna cringe the day we hit 100, because we have a bunch of new labor and industry requirements that we have to fulfill.
No more new positions.
Yeah, well, you guys are, that's okay. You tell the developers that your permits are
For their
gonna
own
take 6
contract.
months. Yeah. One thing I want to point out is ideally, no one manages more than 5 to 10 people. It's not, you're not effectively managing your employees if you've got more than that. And if you look at the operation, bottom left corner, operations manager, Tony Lang's position, he is supervising 20 employees. And he does a phenomenal job for us, but I think we're likely, you're gonna see a request from me for a mid-level manager in the next budget. And I think Tony needs an assistant, basically, who's not in the union. We have a foreman, but he's a union member. He can't supervise and he can't
What does
provide.
he do?
yeah, what
The
does
foreman?
he do?
He coordinates and schedules work,
Huh,
but he can't provide discipline and he can't correct things because he's a
Well, if
union
You have
member.
a mid-level manager, would they accept those responsibilities of coordinating and scheduling?
Maybe I think there's enough to do without taking that away from the foreman too much. And I know that when we've had incidents where people maybe get hurt, we do get criticized by LNI that our safety program isn't as robust as it needs to be. And we're going to hire one of our interns this summer is going to take our safety program and put it in and catalog it and all of our, so we've got a project for an intern that's going to work on that this summer. Probably 20 to 30% of somebody's job needs to be our safety program and training and make sure. We've got specialized equipment these days. We've got a brand new crane truck and there's certifications and training and documentation related to that training that has to be done. We've got a bucket truck. We've got chippers and chainsaws. And if something happens and our documentation and training isn't in order, we get in trouble with LNI. So what I'm probably going to be asking, and I don't know, I'm recognizing I got a problem, a couple of issues, and likely I'm gonna be asking, and I don't know fully what that position looks like, but it's probably another mid-level manager in this department, and I'm trying not to silo public works into these guys only do sewer and these guys only do this.
Right.
We've got we got leads and generalists, and that, you know, and everybody does a little bit of everything.
So under operations supervisor, some of those positions are leads.
We have a, let's see here, where are they?
Because that was my observation. What if you hired a lead for the
We-
personnel section of 12?
I don't fully have it we have leads in each for store, like Sylvester Sewer, Dave
Okay.
Bolts but they're union members,
Yeah,
okay?
Right.
So we got a labor union, so
The big thing is you're trying to get this another supervisor.
I need another person that's not in the union that can
And
do,
trying to get.
that can do evaluations, that can do coaching, that can do the safety program. I'm recognizing I've got a weakness here, because I got somebody trying to evaluate, train, and discipline 20 employees, and I'm gonna burn that person out.
And as much as I'd like to suggest removing the person from a union, an existing person, union is never gonna give me.
The union's not gonna give me that.
I've tried that numerous places.
Yeah, and the structure and the CBA requirement says I have a foreman and these leads, and it's very prescribed.
So your challenge is trying to figure out where that mid-level is going to fit in here so that it's not Tony supervising a mid-level who then is supervising.
Correct. That person's gonna work from Tony, but they're gonna, you know, you're responsible for the training and you know, and likely, and this isn't baked. I'm just saying, I got a problem, and when I come to the next budget process, I'm gonna have a plan. I don't have a plan today, but likely one of the two of them is gonna oversee the parks guys, okay? And, you know, these silos, and I'm trying not to silo them, but certain operations are gonna be, each one of them is gonna be responsible for certain things. Ultimately, Tony's still the manager. This one person works for him, but training, safety, and that type of stuff, we need to break this up a little bit so that it's doable.
My only comment would be, and I'm not, this guy, what you're proposing makes sense, but when you talk about LMI, I mean, safety covers the whole city, not just public works.
Correct.
So you need a safety person that can touch all of these. Now, you need a trainer.
Yes,
You need somebody in each department that it will be responsible for safety in that department, so.
we have a safety committee, and each department has a representative, and so, yeah, we're very aware of that.
Okay.
It's just that Public Works has far more, equipment and-
I'm not
and-
discounting it. I'm
yeah,
just saying
that's
that
the difference.
From L&I's perspective, they want somebody that's. kind of
Correct. Well, and-
citywide, not just
And it's our HR manager and actually it's her assistant is the head of the safety committee, and each department has a representative, and then there's a management representative. So we've got that covered, and we have our safety program. It's just that
Okay.
Public Works is training and safety requirements because of the heavy equipment they operate and the specialized. There's additional boxes and documentation related to that, because if you don't document it, it didn't happen.
Right.
Rob, if you've got a 10-foot view of these trees versus a 500-foot, like for example, where Tony's at there, do you have a closer breakdown of what the foreman does? Who he
Oh, yeah,
supervises?
everybody's got a job description. Oh, yeah.
Right, but a closer in, more detailed tree on this?
We do, and it's your job, it's the job descriptions for each one of these positions. There's a whole, I mean,
So the foreman then handles all three coordinators down below them?
yes.
And the two mechanics?
And then, so those coordinators, there's sewer, water, and storm, okay? And that coordinator, he's the expert in that area. And he gets a slightly more money than the folks in the personnel bucket, okay? But, and when they're on a, you know, a water main break, he's the expert and he knows more about the system
Sure.
than the labor type guy, okay? And he's not the manager, he is somewhat direct, you know, we need, you know, these couplings, we need this kind of, you know, type of stuff. He's the expert in water. And then I've got an expert in sewer and I got an expert in stormwater. And so there's three, you know, somewhat utilities there and each one's a little bit specialized.
And everyone from the foreman down are union,
Foreman is also down.
right, from the
Yeah,
foreman down
everybody in that,
are
yes.
union,
Yep.
union employees.
Except for our seasonal laborers are not union members.
Oh.
They don't pay dues and they don't have benefits. They're here for the summer. It's college kids.
There's a couple things, and this is more just graphic
Mhm.
representation that this speaks to me, and I think everybody needs to be aware. First off, I think the council being out here, loneliness is not appropriately placed. I think council fits between citizens and the mayor. But I think the thing that needs to be important is that if you were to do that, the 98 employees needs to be below the mayor, because the thing that really
Yeah.
is
You're right.
fair,
That-
I think is
that line-
is that the staff works for the mayor.
Mhm.
Staff does not work for the council.
Mhm.
And I also appreciate the fact that the municipal court is out there on their own, because
Yep.
they are, I mean, that's the third form of government, so. From a graphic standpoint, that's all.
So you want it to be citizens and then council flowing down?
Well, somehow, you know, you obviously report to the citizens as well, but as far as the general,
Yeah, I think the correction needs to be
Guidance of
that
the
the
city.
98 employee bucket needs to just be underneath me.
Yeah, I
Not
agree.
above me.
yeah, I agree, it needs to be below you, and I like
appreciate
to
you showing
got
the numbers.
supervise. And then, you know, the council needs to go from council to mayor, not from council to staff. I think that's the big thing.
Yeah, no, you know, these gray boxes, Debbie just created this because we've grown
Oh, I
leaps and
understand.
bounds just in the last week. And when she gave it to me and I said, this is really helpful, but I want to know how many employees are in, so those gray boxes got added at the 11th hour just before this meeting.
So, you know,
So that gray box, it needs to, for 98 needs to be below me.
Flipped, yeah.
And
yeah,
that,
I agree.
that corrects that.
I agree.
And I'll take care of that.
Thank you for this.
Yeah, but it was just for me too.
Yeah, this is helpful.
Who, you know, I don't believe all the people were hired. I mean, you do, you've approved them.
And Mayor, would this be a budget item?
No, yeah, I mean, sorry,
The
yeah,
staffing, like.
the staffing, yes.
The mid-level manager.
mid-level manager, if we can add that to the budget bucket and to discuss later in the day, if you'd indulge me in that.
And I would
You don't-
just thought, this is my personal approach. You guys do what you want, obviously. But my approach to staffing is, you know, we hear frequently from our department heads that we need more. I appreciate what they're saying and they're closer to it, but I don't really pay attention to them. It's you that needs to come to us and say, you know, once the mayor has recommended somebody, I take that a lot more seriously than, you know, department head coming in and say, you know, gee, I need more people because,
I can assure you that
So-
every one of my directors needs 5 more people.
well, yeah.
And they deserve them, but we can't afford them. So it's
It's
Balance.
your
where
job to prioritize.
prioritize and create balance. And then we, you know,
But sometimes if there's an outcome that we want.
yes.
Well, that's something that we negotiate with the mayor. We
Yes.
say, we want this new department that,
No, but I'm saying this,
Yeah.
you know, an outcome being, and we don't want, this is an extreme example, you know, 6-month permits, you know, we want 3-month permits, what would it take?
but it's not our job to go in and
No.
tell the community development director, this is what I want you to do to fix this problem.
Yeah.
We tell the mayor, and he works it.
I've got, it's just not a
Concur.
Okay.
document. So that was supposed to be the 2-minute item that,
Yeah.
I was gonna make up some time there.
What's for dinner?
So, you know, in this process, remember, we're gonna put things on, this is the first step in this budget process, and we're gonna prioritize some stuff. And then the second bite for you guys is as we're traveling through that budget process, we have an opportunity to modify this stuff. But I'm just you know, bringing your concerns, you know, that you individually brought to me and the things that I'm seeing, I'm trying to point out to you so that when we get to the budget process, you're not hearing for the first time that, you know, I think we have a challenge in the mid-level management in public works. And today, I don't know what that job looks like, but I think it's not realistic that somebody manages 20 people. Yeah.
Do you ever go to employees at all to ask their feedback about what they think is working for them and not?
I'm not perfect.
No, I'm asking
Sorry.
because I've actually heard.
Don't write that in
I know
there.
you think I am, but, Sydney, I really, and it's been more challenging with COVID. I'm out, you know, even during COVID, if people were here, I'm here every day.
Right.
I wander the halls, I pop into people's offices. Hey, you know, my tongue in cheek, you know, what'd you fix today? You know, what'd you, you know, and just trying to find out, you know, what are you working on? What, you know, and trying to find out what challenges exist, or they'll share with me the cranky person that they talked to that day. And so that's kind of how I find out about problems too, a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I try to get input that's how I find out how, you know, I got smoke over in DCD, but I got a fire in the police department, and how do I prioritize?
Because sometimes I think the perspective in different departments is, well, is the management system working? Is there an overlap? Is there really work for everyone, or is one loaded more than another? I mean, I've actually heard some feedback, and it makes me wonder about some things, but I'm just asking. I'm asking to make sure that you don't just hire somebody because it looks like you need a position and maybe.
I don't believe it. I do.
Okay.
I'm in a. I know that one of the things I've instituted since Debbie Lund became the HR manager, I do a one-on-one with every new employee, and I give them 30 to 45 minutes. And I did one yesterday with Teresa, our new person in finance. I want to tell them who I am, what our values are, welcome them, find out a little bit about them to break down that barrier. So when I'm walking the hallway, or catch somebody in the hallway, or walk by their office and ask them what they're working on, they're not afraid of me.
Right.
That I'm, you know, I put my pants on one leg at a time too. And, you know,
You're not a straight person.
you know, but if I didn't have that one-on-one and I hired you off the street and we never had a conversation and sat down for half hour, you might be afraid of the mayor.
So there.
You know, and you know, one of Teresa's first questions, you know, what do I call you? Rob. Rob works just fine. And if we're in a formal setting, maybe it's Mayor Rob, you know, whatever you're comfortable with, but you know, you're welcome to call me Rob. So I try to break those barriers down. You can't, you know, Tony hates me sometimes because I'm out on job sites. I got a hard hat and I got an orange vest, and I'm not bashful about seeing what's going on and why we're doing it the way we're doing it. And, you know, and I call sometimes and say, so there were some trees being planted on Sydney. We knocked the ones out on Kitsap on the one side of the street. We can't this spring get to the other side because it's just too big those trees are too big. But they were removing the hawthorns, and they're gonna put some flowering plums in. And the guy said, hey, great, I'm walking down to the office. We're getting to the trees today. And he says, yeah, we've got enough to do half of the street. And I think we're gonna wait till next spring to do the rest of them. Oh, really? And I got around the corner and I called Tony and I said, what are you thinking? I said, are we gonna be able to get the same trees next year that we're ordering today? I think we need to do all of those trees or not do any of them this year. You know, we need to do this, you know, big. So anyway, Fred is too. Fred sends just, you know, the click fix all the time. And I am quality control sometimes out there to make sure that we're you know, and I don't see everything, but I try, not only in the field, in City Hall, I wander through the police department, I try to be approachable. That's all I can.
Well, and it wasn't any kind of criticism.
No, I didn't, and I didn't take it that way.
Okay.
All right,
It's interesting.
moving on, this is not, we're not, go ahead, Mark.
Well, it's kind of interesting because I work with the public works guys on the benches that we're putting in along the waterfront down there. And I talk to multiple levels of them, the laborers and the foremans and Tony, the ops manager, and they all have a story to tell about what their needs are and where they're focusing their efforts and where the department itself is weak. I think it's important that we all communicate with the mayor about what we're hearing for internally as well, to help him better plan and move forward with the needs of the city. That's all I'd say.
I appreciate that. And my only comment would be that, you know, that a bunch of employees, everybody has their opinion.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
usually it involves more staff.
Yeah, you have to
Well,
have,
right.
you have to have a filter.
Yes.
And that's the mayor.
Yep.
Okay, I'm not asking, we're not gonna dive into this. This is for you to take home and read. This is a strategic staffing study that our chief, this is about $50,000 document. And it's, go ahead, Jay. You wanna-
No, I was waiting till you finish, because.
Okay, so this is about a $50,000 document. Our chief would like to have this. And I can argue why we should do it and and I'm gonna argue why we shouldn't do it. And then I'm gonna allow you guys to read this document and look at it. This is really good information. And it will inform us from a versus hiring, staffing our police. We did a salary survey and an organizational assessment, okay? And those people were planners, and they took our peers from from population. It was population driven, okay? And they aren't police people, okay? And so the information that they gave me, you know, they were a recommendation. I looked at it and went, okay. And that report was $10,000. We got what we paid for. It was very informative, and it looked at how, you know, our peers, you know, from DCD to Public Works, and I've got some ideas when Mr. Dorsey retires and how we're probably I'm gonna ask to restructure things a bit that make really sense that came from that report, and it pointed out deficiencies that we've acted on. But this is looking at it from the standpoint of crime statistics and the activity that goes on in our community related to, you know, police reports.
And not a population.
Not population driven. Now, I know that we probably we'll be asking you for probably at least 2 more officers because of our growth, okay? I believe, and I think you would agree with me, that our police officers right now, because they are going from call to call to call to call, we are not doing any community-based policing. I would like to see our police officers, I'm sure you would agree, we have a very expensive boat that never leaves the marina unless there's an emergency. And we should be out dealing with these derelict vessels, but it takes 2 police officers to man that boat. And so we should be out on that boat a little bit of time, from time to time, and dealing with that problem that we all see floating out there and our floating homeless encampment out there. We also, I think I would like to see our police officers doing traffic, you know, and writing tickets and, you know, dealing with that. I get a lot of complaints about speeding. It
Yeah.
exists everywhere in our community, and reckless driving. Now, we can't pursue right now. That's a different problem, but we should be doing some traffic control out there from time, you know, a portion of their time. And we should be on some bicycles once in a while, on our waterfront and in our parks. And right now, that isn't happening because our police officers go from call to call to call. Part of it is we're short-staffed, and a document like this would tell us what we should have and what the future as we grow should look like. The devil's advocate to this is, so I could argue we should be adding an officer or two every budget until we get to the point where we're policing our community the way we should be, or how we want our community policed. And I don't think right now we're policing our community the way we would want to.
Question that I would have, and I'm not disputing it, I haven't read this, but our crime statistics are up.
Significantly.
How much of that is due to the fact that we have vacant positions that we've been struggling to fill?
Some of it, yes.
So
Some of it's COVID.
I appreciate, if we were up to full staff as it's approved today,
Mhm.
and you mentioned COVID is behind us, where would those stats be?
Tell that to the jail. It's not keeping people.
Well, you're asking us
Yeah.
to look at staffing
Consider.
based on crime statistics, and my question is back to the crime statistics, that is that a accurate, normal
Mhm.
picture, or is it something that we're basing on the abnormal of we're not able to fill the vacant positions and COVID? I don't know, but
That is a very valid point.
Yeah.
And so now I've made a pitch that we should do this. Our chief would very much like us to do this. When I talked to our attorney about this document would tell us maybe something we don't.
don't ask the question if you don't want the answer.
And we have a union that we're in negotiations with, and it forces us to make cuts other places to fund what a report says. So that I'm just telling
Also
you.
put you on notice that you have a
Yeah,
deficiency.
so-
Yeah.
So there's the two, aspects of that. And I believe setting, you're right, John, that maybe it's, I think we're probably, because of our growth and the growth that's on our horizon, that, and we're gonna talk about an annexation here pretty soon. Yeah, that we probably need to get out in front of hiring another officer or two.
Yeah.
And I believe that it's probably warranted, and we should be considering that in the next budget. So, go ahead,
So,
Scott.
I just was quickly looking through this, and on page 9, they talk about why they didn't take the per capita per 1,000
Yeah.
ratio, and they provide a lot of good examples, a handful of bullets. But the other thing we have to remember, and I'm stating the obvious, is we have a service area that draws in much of people from outside the city limits.
Right.
And that ratio, population ratio approach doesn't consider that. I don't think.
Correct.
Yeah, so I appreciate what you're saying, Scott. We've always had a demographic
Yeah.
issue.
Yeah.
We've historically have always been the blue collar, however you want to define that, for the shipyard. So whether it's education, whether it's income, whatever those factors are, it's different in the city of Port Orchard versus the city of Bainbridge, for example.
Yeah.
So we
Well,
also
big
have
time.
the
Yeah.
county seat for jail.
Well,
And-
the county
and that
jail,
as well.
that brings in what you're suggesting.
Yeah.
is We have a lot of stuff that comes into our city that helps, but we also have that with the ships that come and go. I don't want to.
This is a good conversation.
At the Navy, but we do have a different profile, if you will, of population.
Yeah,
Makes us
There's a little commonalities here because Puyallup does have the mall, which draws a lot of folks from all over that county.
Yeah.
to
And they're a
that
much
area.
bigger city though.
Yeah, there's-
This is, apples and
Much
oranges.
bigger.
This is
Oh,
just
yeah,
a good example of a report. And, like I said, I can argue this one either way.
So,
Our chief is advocating for it. Our attorney just gave me a word of caution that, and either way, I think that you're gonna see a request from me probably for an officer or two in the next biennial budget.
the other thing I wanted to add, just from observation and reading articles, and we've all seen this, it seems like there's been a bump in people unleashing their inner animal and crime stats going up nationwide. And, I don't know if that's gonna be tamped down a whole lot, it remains to be seen.
In just a second, here, I'll get to Jay. I was at 10 o'clock last night texting Senator Randall trying to get 5919 passed, which would have helped us out in these pursuits. We did get some meaningful changes from clawing back to probable cause versus reasonable suspicion and use of force. So some of that got changed to the positive. We didn't get any help with, and if you read that report that the chief forwarded to you with our crime stats and our activities, and that we're not social profiling and so on and so forth. About page, I think I pointed out to you, page 15, we had 2 pursuits last year in the first 6 months of the year, 2. It's not like we have a whole lot of pursuits, okay? I get the legislature's position. Bad things can happen when you fly through town at 50 miles an hour and chasing somebody, and when they go through an intersection and a pedestrian gets hit or a car accident happens and people can get hurt. They don't want us pursuing people over property crimes. Okay, it's stolen cars. I disagree with them. You know, we had in the second half of the year, 11 people flee us and no pursuits because we can't pursue. We are seeing the first 2 months of the year, 12 people a month flee our police officers. Nobody's stopping when they're driving recklessly, and this is bad. This is bad stuff. And unfortunately, the session ended last night and they couldn't get enough votes. Emily couldn't get enough votes from her caucus to get it on the floor for a vote. And so we got work to do there. And that's, I'm get off my soapbox now.
But I put this as a budget item.
I would like, well, no, first
I can tell you, I'm more inclined, I haven't read this document, but I know what they can do. I'm more inclined to respond to your thoughts of we need more police officers next budget than funding the report that's going to tell us
Right.
whatever, because and it's not that I'm against the report, I just don't think that the basis for which this report is going to be working from is accurate because of the lack of staffing and some of these other issues, COVID. Maybe in a couple of years when we're fully staffed and we've got, then maybe we could look at that. That's fine. Okay.
Well, for you
So let's
guys,
go around the table here a little. So, because I think there's 2 different approaches. Fund a report and let the report inform the budget process, or that we just put a budget, a line in our priorities to additional police officers. So I think those are the 2 places to go to Jay, and then we kind of go around the room here.
That's good. One of the things that I'm focusing on is, because I ride my bike, has been speeding. And I had a conversation with Chris before he went out on family issues. And he said that, one of the things was, there's a lot of things that we can do on our roads that don't necessarily is this or that, because I asked about speed bumps. And he says there's lots of other things we can do. My point in the story is I think I'd rather use the money that we'd allocate for a report. And for full disclosure, the chief called me up and said, would you support this?
And then I called the chief and said, don't be lobbying the city council.
Excuse me?
Thank you.
I
can't believe that.
I just say, I told mayor.
He did.
I did, told mayor. So my point of the story is I think down the road, if you want to make it a line item for future, it might be something to look at as growth starts to increase. But I think that there are other things that we can do right now to involve crime. And this was the kicker last night when I was watching the news. The mayor of Tacoma was on board on thing. Their lateral transfer right now, they're paying a $25,000 bonus, and we all had a heart attack over $15,000.
Yeah.
When Sean proposed it. And the reason I say that is we could put a report out that said we need X number of officers. It doesn't matter, we can't get them anyway. So we don't really know what the impact is on a thing.
So that particular resolution you passed isn't going anywhere right now because our guild will approve the
Right.
MOU
Right,
because they want the money put in their contract
right.
Oh, my
But-
goodness.
and not in
We
the
have
higher.
negotiations.
Jesus Christ, we're shooting ourselves in the foot.
So anyway, we'll get there.
Anyway, so Mike, to wrap it up, is I support what the mayor's saying. I'd rather go right now with the.
Well, no, the mayor gave you two options.
I know, and I'm saying this, the option they gave us about, let's put this aside for right now, keep it on the table somewhere down the road,
Mhm.
go for the extra police officer right now, and the other things that we can do to mitigate crime, which I think staff knows what those items are. That's my opinion.
Any differing opinions, Mark,
No, we don't. We've been understaffed police-wise for how many years?
since I've been here?
And the growth is astronomically higher than it's ever been. And right now, it doesn't seem like it's slowing down. We've got more houses being built. We've got more territory we're trying to cover. We don't need any stinking
Yeah.
report to tell us that we're understaffed already, and we need to be staffing for the future as well. So I would be against this report as well.
Does the chief have an idea of how to staff not using the population ratio approach? And I suspect part of that is tied into crime stats, which will those ever come back down from sort of pandemic levels?
To Councilmember Claus's point, we've been chasing our tail since the day I became mayor. We're always 2 officers down, and we put
Yeah.
some things in place to try to get ourselves caught up, okay? So let's get ourselves caught up and evaluate. Are we getting to I think when we're doing community policing, when we're on our police officers, they're not just, responding to 911 calls for criminal activity all day long and doing paperwork related to those crime reports. We need to be out interacting with the community, our police officers, they do. And we can't do it right now because of the level of crime, and hopefully that's going to come down, and the number of officers we have. And I don't, until we get fully staffed, I can't answer that, but I can see the growth projections, and I think we probably need a body or 2, even if we were fully staffed.
Yeah, my personal is, I see those numbers as well, and I said, yeah, let's add 1 or 2 or whatever you think is appropriate, just so that we can keep up with it, but we need to fill the positions that
Yep.
we have vacant, so that we know, are we making any headway,
Where we're
or
at.
we
Yes.
just keep throwing more bodies at something?
And we're working diligently at it.
And I would really question the Gill approach and thinking what was approved. There's 2 things. There's one, money for lateral transfers, and 2 is filling up their leave bucket when they get here. And I'm not a labor expert, but I think the Guild has something to say about the leave buckets.
Mhm.
I don't think they have anything that they can
Our
say.
labor attorney disagrees with you.
And I'm not an attorney, so
We're very disappointed.
So-
I would make sure
And we're gonna have
that
a
we break
labor-
those issues out and
Yeah.
say, are we asking the right questions?
Mhm.
If we were just simply to offer an incentive for people to transfer over here, that should be our prerogative. Now, what we do with employees once they get here, then that affects the working.
I don't think that's any different than our COVID shot that you had to have the vaccine before you can be employed here.
There was a little bit of yeah, you're right.
There's a hiring
They don't
practice.
get to dictate us.
We have a labor session scheduled on the 22nd, so we'll be able to talk a little more about.
Interestingly enough, we just heard from Jay that Tacoma's bumped their bonus up to 25,000. We've had, 5,000 in,
We haven't had anything.
no, but City of Paulsbo had 5,000, Bremerton's got 10,000. How is our now new directive that we voted in causing all these issues with the labor?
Because we're in negotiations with our guild right now.
Timing.
Timing, that's an accurate
Speaking
thing.
of timing,
Yeah. we gotta get that
Good lead into that.
going. All right, the next one's gonna go quick, I promise, unless you don't allow it to. So, there's movement afoot. I think the legislature at some point is going to require body worn cameras by all police agencies in our state. Didn't happen again this session. once they do, everybody's gonna be looking for this equipment and it will be in line. I was gonna ask for it in the next budget. When I first took office, Bremerton was kicking it off and we looked into it a little bit. And it was about $500,000 up front to get going on this. And the technology since then has evolved significantly. It's way better. You know, the office, there's some policies we have to write and the union has to buy off on it, but it's for their protection too, because people claim all kinds of things when they get pulled over or get arrested. So they've identified the equipment they want, and we have, I hate to say it's savings, but we're not spending all of, because we don't have enough officers that are complement. We have money in the budget. We'd like to kick this off in the third or the fourth quarter. The annual, it's a 5-year, it's a 5-year agreement we would sign for $66,000 a year. For over 5 years, it would cost us $330,000 to have body
What
cameras.
is that providing?
All of, so
So is it just the hardware and the system?
hardware, software, everything, the redacting software, equipment, and for our interview room that we can't use right now, that's not compliant. It's the whole banana. Yeah, storage, redacting equipment. We've got an employee planned for the second half of this year that would be that person that does that
I was just gonna
redacting.
ask about, because that's gotta be a.
And the beauty of this new software is it's smart now. You didn't used to be. And so you gray out that child's face and it goes through the rest of that image and does it, throughout the software. Welcome. There's donuts and coffee in the back if you need some.
What about additional hardware?
This is based on our current complement. So each one, there's a cost to each one of those pieces of equipment that we add.
So for that 66,000 a year,
It would grow a little bit as we add more officers. You're right.
how's that break down per officer?
We
I
got
mean,
22
that's something
officers,
we need to
and some of
consider.
this equipment is redacting software. So what this would do, they'll have a camera.
Right.
And they'll have a trigger on both of their weapons, the taser and their firearm. Our policies will be, they go on they step out of their car on a call, they're supposed to activate their camera on their own, and that'll be our policy. And if you don't, there's a process
Right.
for that, for discipline, unfortunately. But in the event, those one-offs, when they aren't on a call and a weapon is drawn, it automatically activates that equipment when a weapon is drawn. So, I
If
think this
equipment's
is,
broken, they'll replace it.
oh yeah, this replaces the equipment. They're providing the equipment. It's almost like it's our equipment, but it's a lease. And at the end of the 5 years, we're gonna have the opportunity to renegotiate and, so we're talking about,
Yep.
You get into you're on the agenda.
So repairs and maintenance are included in this.
It's all, if the officer breaks one, it's just replaced, and that's all included in this price of 66,000. So Chief's just asking that, let's not wait till the next budget, let's get this thing rolling, because it's gonna take time to procure this stuff, write the policies and implement it. And that way, the goal is around January 1st, we're live with this thing and we're rolling with it.
Well, you suggested now that we're negotiating, now's a good time.
No, that's fine. Oh, my question was, do we have cameras on cars right now?
Nope,
Okay, will this do
no,
cameras on cars also?
no.
Okay, it's just body cam.
Body cameras on the police officer only. Yes. We could spend a lot more money than this on,
Right, I just didn't know if there was-
even things that trigger on their car doors and stuff like that, but they've been looking for the last year, and I've sat through a couple different presentations, and they really like this equipment, this particular equipment, the price point and what it does seems to fit our needs very well.
And Mary, you mentioned that there would be policy associated with this, if we're elected, should that be in the policy bucket or not?
I think it comes with
Okay.
yeah, we've got to negotiate that with our guild.
All right.
So are you comfortable with this being in the
Yeah.
budget?
Yes.
Yes.
So, and I think we got complicate, Sophie's world. Our budget priorities, we're gonna have things that are now. There's gonna be next budget and future budgets. So, and this is gonna be a now. If
So
that's
this is a budget adjustment for the
current year, yeah, at some point this year, when we get the equipment. We'd like to place the order, and you'll be getting a contract that commits us to roughly $66,000 a year for the next 5 years.
So you have to find $66,000 before the year's up.
Yeah,
But you said that
Might
we
be
have the
prorated
money
for this.
because
Depends
we
how they bill it.
don't have all the police officers.
yeah, we have, we're not spending
Right,
all of our dollars in the police department right now. We have, I don't want to call it savings. It's
Does
not
signing
savings.
something like this now lock in our pricing?
Yes,
And do I recall you saying in the past that there might be grant opportunities associated with this?
we're not seeing any right now.
Okay,
If the legislature took action, there might be,
okay.
but they didn't.
All right.
But I think we're ready for this as a community.
Yeah.
Let's not wait for the legislature. Then when the legislature takes that action, everybody's gonna be looking to procure this equipment at once, and we'll be in line like our audiovisual equipment.
And the redactor, is that somebody that's on staff now?
No, but you've already approved that, you know, we've been prepping this.
Okay.
We have another person that we have evidence specialist, and that you've already approved that in the budget, and about half of their job is envisioned doing this redacting as well as supporting the evidence room.
All right,
Matt's goal is not to have so many silo people, but people that do multiple jobs, you know, so that when somebody's on vacation or sick.
Can I ask a clarifying question now that there's different budget years? The 1 to 2 additional police officers,
That is future, that's next budget.
2022, 2023?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Well, that would be for
23,
24.
yeah,
Yes, I'm sorry. It's 23 and 24.
23, 24 for the.
Yeah. And then the one after that would be 25, 26. So the police officers, so we had a discussion about funding a staffing report or just acknowledging that we have a need, and in the next budget, we would consider hiring an officer or two. And when we get to the point where we're fully staffed and are doing community, you know, traffic control, getting on our boats, we want to get to the point where our officers are out riding their bikes in our parks, doing traffic and those type of things. And right now we're not.
Yeah.
So when we get to that point, then we'll probably have the right number of officers. Okay, we've got a document in your packet, and this would be Exhibit A, Sophie, for sharing for the stream. So we've got, these are all the elements related to the Frederick Street project and the sea level rise. From the stormwater outfalls that we need to build and what this is going to look like. And we talked a little bit about this earlier. We're applying for a federal grant. Chris is out making a pitch today on that. We believe this is a $4 to $4.5 million project, and our grant award will be in the $1.5 million to $2 million range. And so that grant could fund design and construction, but we know that the dollars for the award won't come till 2026. We know that we're going to need to put $2 to $2.5 million worth of local money in this. The design is likely $1 million, and let's get that money in this next budget. You know, we'll know before the next budget whether or not we got the award. If we get the award, then let's hire the consultants to do the 100% design of this, so that the day we get our federal award, we're going to construction. Because likely the bank's building has been done for about a year now, and their sidewalk is 2 feet higher than our street. And so I'm just making you aware of that and what all the elements that are related to this street design. And I shared earlier, unfortunately, we can't use our traffic impact fee dollars for this because it's not growth related. This is an existing condition and sea level rise. So any concerns with adding that to the budget bucket for $1 million in the next, for consideration of the next budget? Okay,
The acronym APE, what is that?
area of potential effect.
Okay.
Scary, I know that.
And a question
It's the
on your,
construction zone.
your drawing, you have construction schedule number 5, south development. I don't see anything that's indicating south development.
That would be the master plan project, future development, I think. What are you referring to, John?
In the little box here that says construction schedule number 5. Lower right corner of this.
Pink box.
It's number 5 under construction
Oh,
schedule.
south development, that would be the south is the bottom of the map. It'd be we know that someone has
Future
our,
developments, is that what you're,
Yeah.
call these future developments, but listed as south development, that's why I was.
yeah,
Okay.
that's what that is.
South
We know that
base.
someone has our property tied up right now and this month, but that agreement expires and we'll be looking at trying to get somebody else to bring that master plan project. Bank's moving forward quickly, we are too, but that master plan project across the street is lagging.
So I don't see it, and maybe it's,
It's the orange box.
no, I was gonna say, I don't see bike lanes. Is that gonna be something that's contemplated to this, dedicated?
Not in that, there just isn't room.
Yeah, okay.
There'll be a shoulder, because you also have some on-street parking that we're negotiating
Yeah, I
with the
see that.
state. And we're asking the state, see it, this is softening this corner. It's a smooth radius right now, and we want to have some parking in that street around the community center in that intersection, which is a deviation from WashDOT standards. And the concession we're making to WashDOT or pitch that will lower the speed limit to 20 miles an hour. You're probably doing 5 miles an hour anyway, most times down through there because you're backed up at the traffic lights. So we didn't tell them that.
Were you talking about agreement that's expiring? Is that 640 Bay Street?
Yes.
Oh, it is.
Okay, so,
Yeah, the purchase and sale agreement.
right, that's what I thought, that was expired.
Yes, it expires this month.
Question on,
I have a question on this. We talked earlier about, and then in previous council meetings, we talked about future growth, and when we hit 25,000, this street becomes our responsibility. Now it's looking like 2027. There's a lot of dates in here. By then, this will be our
Could be,
responsibility.
But it's not today. And you know, when you say our responsibility, it's maintenance. It's not rebuilding the street. The state, we have an ILA where our plows that. But
Understood.
as far as potholes and paving the street, that's what the state does,
Understood.
and we become responsible for that maintenance of Mile Hill and
But
Bay
this look-
Street and Sedgwick, unfortunately, also.
But this look is still based on the state requirements.
They have to buy off on our plans. And then we're in that negotiations with them. And when we were meeting with them on the KFC, the traffic light, we got heads nodding. We haven't gotten the formal approval yet, which is been taking months. But
And
they've got this drawing and they're evaluating it.
And to Scott's statement, can you put bike lanes on a state highway?
It's not the traditional highway. It's
Right.
not like Highway 16, but there just isn't room
No, I understand.
within the existing right of way. We are, we're getting trees, we're getting wider sidewalks.
Right.
my question is, you've got the pedestrian path,
Correct.
Yeah,
there's a big section that's kind of
Yeah,
lacking.
how do I stop it? That button?
Down. It's a
Where?
push down.
Push that down?
Yes.
Okay, I can handle that.
Mhm.
I've been coached, push it down.
Right.
So
There's
you're
a
right, John,
section-
and there will be a fog line and there's a standard that we have to have.
Yeah.
It's just not gonna be the, with the stenciled bike lane. There will be a shoulder that a person could ride their bike down. Prescribed.
My comment, the question is, there's a big Genesee portion, our current bike or pedestrian path project is going from ferry terminal to ferry terminal.
Correct.
From ferry terminal to this project is a segment relatively short that isn't
Correct.
factored in. And our current pedestrian path is, includes bicycle.
Yes,
So
and
my ultimate question is that if we satisfy the bicycle requirement,
we will
appreciating
satisfy.
that this is a state
We
highway.
satisfy
Let me
it.
finish, Rob.
Yeah.
Appreciating that this is a state highway, we could respond to the bicyclists by saying, this
There you go.
provides bicycle access through our downtown all the way to where it is currently. We plan to eventually take it all the way to the boulevard. So
we will satisfy the bicycle requirement. It just won't be a
With
painted,
designated bike.
there's a washed-out spec for, I don't know, I can't remember if it's 2 feet or 3 feet from the fog line, and we have to provide that here, and we will. We'll meet the washed-out spec on that. And you're right, most bicyclists or pedestrians are going to travel on our beautiful pathway,
right,
and
specifically designed to respond to the bicyclist
Yeah.
needs.
but we also have to provide for that out on the road. But not in a 10-foot wide pathway. It's whatever
Yeah.
whatever that requirement is.
Well,
For
I just,
bicycle.
Yeah.
and I appreciate that this is an artist's rendition, but you've got identified what I'm assuming is areas that would be for vehicle parking.
Correct.
So that separate from that to the center line, you don't have a lot of room for cars and a
Yeah.
wide bicycle.
We'll meet the washed out requirements, though. I know that.
Okay.
And
There's a situational study. We already have design dollars for ferry terminal to the boulevard, or actually up to Tremont. You guys will be obligating those monies here soon and awarding a contract in the $500,000 range that'll give us the concepts beyond these artist renderings. And then our goal is not to federalize the construction, at least of much of this, and do it as part of the plaza. Boulevard's going to be, study's not done yet, but we can very easily put that road width on a diet and have 2 lanes of road and probably even a bike path on a lane on each side, very easily up there. So we just, and solve that with paint. So there's some, that'll come out of that study though. But anyway, the bottom line, what I'm trying to advocate for is we can't wait to design this until 2026. We need to get out in front of this, and it's going to take our general fund dollars, or we don't have, as I said, we don't have REIT dollars to spend right now. We can't use our traffic impact fee dollars. So we got to figure out how we're going to pay for that. But I plan to ask for that in the next budget.
so what's interesting here is how it shows the bike path transitioning over to Bay Street. And I don't believe the plan is to go behind 7-Eleven and have it come out by the boat ramp. That wouldn't.
No, not without 7-Eleven. It could, that situational study will solve that.
Yeah.
Whether we're building something that's cantilevered. And we'd have to mitigate for that on the backside. There isn't enough room to do a traditional.
No.
Right now, we're planning on turning that area in front of 7-Eleven and on the west end of the community center into more of a plaza. There'll be some parking in there, but that's going to be another little public plaza, I believe. And that's a piece, that's called, it's not a right of way, it's a waterway, which has different rules than.
You have to remember, there's 2 kinds of bikers. There's the bikers that are going to meander along the bike path, but then there's people that like to keep a consistent 20 or 25.
Yeah. A serious biker is not going to take our path.
Yes.
They're riding right down with traffic. So, all right, Sophie's kicking me under the table again.
Thank you.
So, and then I'm just making you aware, and I would think this is a 25 to 26 budget need. Nick is applying for an RCO grant for the plaza between the bank and the community center. And it's likely a $2 million project. We'll get 50, if we're successful, we'll get $1 million, and that would likely be funded from our park impact fees. And we'll talk about those a little bit later, but we should have all or most of that money by that budget process to pay for our portion of that plaza. And from a priority standpoint, I think that there's 3 elements that we need to fund related to this master plan project. The street, the plaza, and the shoreline restoration. And the relationship, that plaza is probably the biggest priority because it's the space between the community center and the bank and that open space. The street's probably the second most, or a close second. And I want to do the shoreline as soon as possible, but it's a distant third as we get to that. So I just want, with your permission, I'm going to add that to the budget bucket but out in an out year, 25 to 26. Any objections to that?
No.
Okay. All right, let's go to the exhibit E. Sophie, if you could open that up. And this is, I just want to talk about what we've accomplished in this biennial budget. And then I've got the next item that talks about some solutions. And so currently we have, okay, our budget has just shy of $2 million between what we did in the initial budget and what it is. Nope, not that one. This one. No, sir. Yeah, it should look like.
Like preservation, implementation.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. It said, yeah, it says work plan, pavement preservation, implementation outline plan. I'm sorry, Sophie, I didn't get that one to you. A lot of this was made this week. So Sophie in bits and pieces. So this budget, including the amendments that you approved at the end of the year, put nearly just shy of $2 million into our budget for street preservation and maintenance. We contracted work that we've done with those dollars include the $212,000 project to fix the sinkhole and others. That was about a little more than a $500,000 project, but it had sewer, it had stormwater, it had other elements that helped pay for that project. But the street portion of it was $212,000. We got a grant. We've got an $800,000 project that we're going to do this summer to rebuild Lippert Street as a complete street, new sidewalks, new sidewalk ramps. We got a grant for $250,000 from the county, and we'll be going to construction this year on that. And I would like to, in my pitch later, I'd like to every budget identify a substandard street, residential type. This should be a residential street. It ends up being kind of a shortcut for people that we're rebuilding a complete street every biennium. But we got to get to the dollars, and I'll talk about that later. We're going to do mill and fills this year, which is grind out and fill on Old Clifton Road. We're going to do them. When we did Bethel, we did from 1 to the bridge. And now we need to do from the bridge to Port Orchard Boulevard. And so that will be these will all be contracted out. Sydney Road, Sedgwick to the city limits heading south. If we have, when we go out to bid, the top two are the most important. If we got enough money left, we would like to conquer that too. Might have to wait till the next biennium. And then, so that in 20, we're going to do the Lippert Street project. I don't know why that's listed again, because Chris created this document for me. Our city folks are going to do crack sealing and patching with the equipment that we bought. We're going to tackle Sydney Avenue from Tremont to Lippert, going south, and do crack sealing and patches. McCormick Woods Drive is seeing a number of, so if we get on top of these cracks, what we don't want is the water getting into the subsurface, because then the road deteriorates faster. So part of our pavement management system is we bought some equipment that we want to go out and do the oil crack sealing, and we'll preserve that road for until we're ready to overlay it, and it'll last much longer. Go ahead, Jay.
We talked about McCormick Woods Drive, and my question is, especially, is the developer kicking anything in for the amount of traffic that they put on? Okay.
We don't have a mechanism, you know, where they put the sewer line in and they'll put water lines in, that's where we can ask that they do something like that.
Yeah.
But as far as traffic on the road, this is part of, and that's why when I talked earlier about Old Clifton, that needs to be overlaid, but until we're done building
Yeah.
a whole bunch of houses and driving dump trucks and lumber trucks down that road every day, it doesn't make a whole lot, it's gonna get torn back up again. So we're gonna nurse that along with a Band-Aid. Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Same question is along Jay's line from Sydney Road, Sedgwick to the city limits south. The new, I don't know if that's Rush or whoever's putting those in, are they kicking in for any of that?
They are
rebranding
required
the road?
to, it's from center line of the lane to the shoulder. So when they do a cut, they're responsible for a patch that's not just the trench, but that's all we can require of them. We can't make them repave our broken road. And so we're gonna hopefully time this with them finishing all their cuts they need to do for those new apartments that are being built. So we're not, because we have a moratorium on our streets once we pave them.
Right.
John?
I guess, you know, my general reaction, I'm not terribly impressed with the mill and fill, at least the experiences that we've had. I think Bethel, if you go look at what we did at Bethel, we spent a ton of money on Bethel. Yeah. I mean, there are some places that we did the mill and fill that are still fine. There's other places that it was a waste of money.
I don't
So
disagree.
I guess my question is there any reports out there, any information that we can look at to say this is a viable option, or what is the life expectancy of a mill and fill? Like I said, we spent a ton of money on Bethel. I think one thing we got screwed.
The challenge with Bethel is just the volume of traffic on those mill and fills.
Well, whatever the issues
Yeah.
are, I'd like to see some
Yeah.
data that suggests that either this is viable or
Yeah.
what you should expect if you do it this way versus, well, we can afford to do little strips, but is it really cost effective?
I hear you, and when we do, there's this ADA is a big driver and for a city when it comes to when we do a shoulder to shoulder paving, we're required to address ADA.
So on some of our streets where we currently do not have sidewalks, does that ADA requirement require us to put sidewalks in now? Or can we simply just pave the paved portion?
I don't have an answer.
Well, we know some kind of.
Yeah, that's a good
Maybe the street committee, if you could take those things on, because to me, we're not gaining any ground. Even we've allocated a ton of money here.
And
I'm
I've got,
hoping that we will start gaining on this thing, because as we talked earlier, we're adding more and more streets to the city every year. And our need is, on an annual basis, is increasing.
don't disagree with you at all. And we all know that we get a pavement management system
Yes.
report that told us we need to make any ground, we need to spend $1.5 million every year. And as long as I'm in starting year 17, John's got many more than I do, and Fred's got just as many. We've never, it used to be a couple $100,000, and we've made, this is a big move forward to get 2 million. We're still not being told, doing what our consultant told. And I've got our next item, I've got a plan. So, to address some of
I
this.
just wanted,
Yeah.
the mill and fill is my issue, my question.
Mhm.
Is this?
I'm being told by our engineers it
investment
is.
in our problem?
It is, and
Based on what are you basing that on? That's my point,
Okay.
is do we have any unbiased report that says, this is the way we need to go?
Yeah.
Or be prepared for this if you go that direction. That's all.
go ahead, Mark.
Just on a personal note, I'm actually working with agate asphalt now on my driveway and the lower section of my road, which is in horrible shape. And he talked a little bit about this mill and fill thing, because I've got some potholes in the bottom of the road there that are spidering out. And he said that you could mill and fill that every month and it'll come right back.
Yeah, see, that's what-
Part of it is your sub base,
Yeah.
and we dealt with that there in front of Sydney Glenn, where we had a stump. We didn't know that that was the culprit.
A stump in the subbase.
It was down underneath and rotting, you know, when the county built the road, it was just down there rotting and deteriorating, and, you know, we kept putting patches over it and it just kept going down. I mean, it's, you know, that pavement management report though did tell us, remember, we paid extra money for the bouncing ball that did this, the sonar down in, so that we could have an idea what's underneath there. So we're with the resources I don't have a better alternative unless I had tens of millions of dollars to completely rebuild every street.
I would rather spend $1 million on one block, knowing that it's gonna be fixed for 30 years, than spending $50,000 on 10 blocks, knowing that we're gonna be back next month needing to do it again. That's my point.
Okay, fair point.
Mayor, did you want to differentiate between mill and fills from the other items we're talking about? So they're-
No, this is informational at this
It's all
point, and I've got something
Okay.
policy wise I want
crack
to talk about it.
sealing.
And on the back
Crack
here
sealing has
is
lot
a
to do
list
with
of
how long it lasts.
streets that we know are failed. And once it's failed, there's no point, it's gotta be rebuilt from subgrade down, and those are what I'm referring to. I hope that we can get to a point in our funding where we're picking one of these off every biennium, you know, because these are likely, like Lippert, they're costing us nearly $1 million. And then we have to evaluate how many cars drive on it. And so, but Chris this is right out of our pavement management report, telling us streets we already know that it doesn't do any good to do a mill and fill because the subgrade is bad, and all it's gonna do is sink right afterwards.
So Lippert, going back to, since you just brought that back up again, that's sidewalks on both sides of Lippert?
Yep,
All the way to
and
the
new
top?
ramps, and we're rebuilding all of it. It's gonna be beautiful when it's done. No street trees, sorry.
The claim for mill and fill is 7 to 10 years of durability. But you're not really seeing that.
Well,
Probably because of rain.
yeah, and part of where I'm seeing the challenges on Bethel is around, you don't put manholes on the traffic lane. And it's around those manholes, for the sewer manholes, that, you know, when the county put that project out there, and it was West Sound's project to bring sewer down Bethel, you know, that needed to be in the shoulder or in the center, because they had this grand vision, Bethel was gonna get 4-laned, and just the cheapest way to do this is it's right there and on the right-hand tire. And when you hit those, it just creates a problem area forever until we rebuild that road.
I guess my response would be that, and you mentioned before that mill and fill doesn't work because of subbase.
Mhm.
Do we know the subbase on some of these streets that are
We
being
do.
proposed to be mill and fill, so that we know we're not gonna be in the same situation with those streets in a year?
The other mill and fills we're doing also too aren't the traffic volumes that we have on that.
Okay, I just wanna make sure that.
Yeah,
we're
I hear you,
getting our
John.
money for it, and not just throwing good effort.
I agree. And I think that's a good plan. It's like when we get to this point, maybe it goes in front of the transportation committee. And there's some sort of expert testimony
Yeah,
that's saying, this is what to expect.
The
We
same
decided
ADA
that's
thing
right.
I've heard before, and my question goes back, you acknowledged you weren't sure. We've got streets all over the city that does not have sidewalks, and the streets are failing. I know Beth just mentioned the street that she lives on that before. You know, I could point to any number of streets.
But does it
Including
mean,
Clifton Road,
yeah,
that does not have sidewalks, that the county was able to do an overlay on their portion of it without putting in sidewalks.
Correct.
So that's all.
so my next item is related to utility taxes. If you can open up that, Sophie, and it's the document says utility taxes. And we talked about this a little bit, the finance committee, and I've kind of ran with this now. And we have all of the customers, the city of Port Orchard utility customers pay the utility tax. If you're a citizen of the city of Port Orchard and you are served by the city of Bremerton on the north side of Old Clifton, you don't pay the same taxes as the folks on the other side of the street. And my opinion and the finance committee agreed that we need to have equity as it relates to that. If you're a West Sound utility customer, so anybody on the east side of Blackjack Creek, basically, you don't pay utility taxes. Those businesses on Bethel Corridor. And so we did some analysis. Are currently, of all of our utility taxes, how much money that they generate, those taxes go into our general fund. We charge 5%. Those are the three bolded items on there. I also, Nick and I worked on a graphic to show you what our neighbors charge in utility taxes. Bremerton 15 to 20%, Paulsbrook 12%, Port Townsend 22% they tax. Port Angeles at 10%. So just a reference point of what our peers are. Sometimes you guys ask me that. If you go to table 3, it talks about utility tax revenue on a per capita basis and what our citizens are paying in comparison to everybody else. And we per capita have less taxes on utilities than any of our peers. Shelton is the highest at per capita at $226, and we're at 126.
Bremerton is higher, 32.
You're right, 232. Yeah.
Actually,
Tacoma,
Tacoma, 286.
Yeah.
And Bainbridge is lower,
Yeah.
go figure.
They
That's
have
true.
very few people that are on their utilities, I think.
Maybe I didn't do it with that chart, but the sales, I was just talking about different taxes. You can see where we rank in comparison to our peers, and I did put this one in a ranked order, how much per capita we generate in sales tax, and we're not doing too bad there. I think a lot of it, right, is building materials, so and how long is that is sustainable? And then property tax per capita, and we're the lowest in that area, and that can be driven too by school levies and special tax, and you know how those are viewed in our community. And
Well, you could also look at the assessed valuation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but ours,
Property in Port Orchard is a heck of a lot less expensive than the beach property.
but that it really doesn't ring true because we're capped at 1%. And so it doesn't grow. It's really the taxes generated by those other, voted
Yeah,
things.
but taxes on how many $100,000 homes do we have in Port Orchard compared to?
Yeah.
Or maybe I should adjust, how many $1 million homes do
Yeah.
we have in Port Orchard compared to $1 million homes on
They
Baker?
drown, yeah, on a per capita basis. But a bigger piece of that is voted
Right. The school
taxes,
levies.
school levies, fire,
Yeah.
so on and so forth. Junior taxing districts. So
Interesting.
when I talked to the finance committee about this, they believe that we should be equitable in charging everybody who lives in the city of Portland the same taxes. And the challenge to this is, I think there's another piece to this though, is I would like to raise these slightly by 3% and dedicate a portion of our utility taxes by resolution to street preservation and maintenance to get us to the $1.5 million a year that we should be spending.
What portion of it?
Well, I'll get there. I'll get there. So, this, when we touch this, it is subject to appeal. And if enough signatures are gathered, it can end up on the ballot. Okay, and that shouldn't scare us away,
Right.
but we don't want to touch it twice. Okay, if we're going to touch this for both of these reasons, let's do it all at once. And so now I'll get to what I think we should do, or I would propose to do. I would.
Can I reset back? You said for both of these reasons. I heard street preservation. What was the other?
Well, equity and charging the tax to all our citizens is one reason. And the other is to dedicate, raise them slightly, not to the levels of any of our peers. Yeah, I'm gonna propose by 3% and dedicate 20% of our street. So if you go to my recommendation on the back page, we would, to increase the taxes on our 3 enterprise funds by 3%, and charging the taxes on the Bremerton and West Sound customers would raise an additional nearly $500,000, which gives us a new base. And if we put 20% of our total utility taxes, which is now $2.5 million, we add that to our gas tax dollars and our car tab fees, all combined would total $1.5 million, which is what we should be spending on street, and it would be by resolution. And we don't have to debate that. That's in the budget as a start point every year. And if we want to do, we have newfound money somewhere one year, we can add to this. But I think this should be the base for our street preservation and maintenance dollars on an annual basis. Jay?
A couple of questions. First one. There was, I thought the car tab was only every 10 years.
No.
Okay, that was.
We're going to talk about a sales tax measure later in the day.
Okay, my second question comes up when we're talking about new taxes and new revenues. Is, do we have any idea what our water and sewer costs may be going up for?
Not yet.
Okay, because to me.
And I would hope not much, because we seem to be satisfied. I'm seeing the balances in our funds, where it could be our operational costs, but our capital needs, I think we're doing pretty well on. We've got some significant low interest loans, and we've got a ton of connection fee revenue coming in.
Because the one thing I've heard consistently across the board from folks is the cost of sewer. That they pay, whether you have a family of 6 or family of 1, it's the same. And I just, when we go out and we have a good idea, I don't have a problem, but I don't want to be hit here and then come right back to them because of what's happening with sewer and stuff. And that was my only concern.
And I hear you, and to the person, nobody wants to pay more than they have to. But remember, those are enterprise funds, and other than this tax, which goes into our general fund, it's the cost of providing that service. And we're not out of line. As every time we've touched this, well, it's not part of our decision process. This is our cost. We always do that comparison, and we're in the middle. We're not the highest cost, and we're not the least expensive. And part of it is the sins of our past, is that for many years, the council thought they were doing everybody a favor by keeping their utility rates down, and we got behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, and I'm not debating that, I haven't said here, but I guess my big concern is that they don't, what are we asking for and what are we gonna do? I mean, I hate to say it, one of the things that drives me nuts about the library and the fire district is they put a new tax on or something, they collected till the cows come home, they never put a sunset clause on it and stuff like that. I just.
And this proposal would be by council resolution. There's nothing to prevent a future council from modifying this, but we haven't touched our, we had dates here. 1970 is when we last touched our utility taxes in our city. And if you look at it, I wouldn't be advocating to do this, to just put the dollars in the general fund, but I know we have a need in our streets. And I think we can make a very good case why this is important.
And I certainly don't want to do bait and switch either.
Yeah, and this would be by council. I'm proposing, if we do this, you guys are gonna pass a resolution that says these dollars are solely for street preservation and maintenance. Mark?
Rob, is there any, these numbers that you're coming up with, these dollar amounts, is this with what we have, what we're collecting right now? Or are you looking into the future with the homes that are being built and what we have in the permit process?
You're right, Mark, that this will grow, but that number for the cost of our street preservation and maintenance, I haven't put any, that $1.5 million, was 6 years ago or 7 years ago, it's probably a bigger number. I'm trying to get us to where we should be doing. And you're right, that this revenue source should grow with more homes, more cars, cabs, and so on and so forth.
But there's also going to be relationship to more homes, more population, or more streets that we have to
Have to
maintain.
Correct. So I don't know that we're
And the cost going up every year.
Yeah.
in the cost going, up. Right, so
8%.
you're right, we're gonna generate more revenue, but I don't know that we're gonna keep pace with the cost or the
Right.
need. There's always more need.
I've always heard from folks a lot, whenever you're doing something, if they know what the money is being used for, and it's not just going into that big black hole called general fund. They're far more inclined to support something like that. And if they know that a portion of this money is going to Project X, in this case, street preservation, I think, it always hurts to have to pay more every month, but at least there's a understanding of why. Now, the equity issue, I think is completely separate. I just think it's fair that everybody should be paying the same rate. I see that as two separate issues completely.
I'm just trying to get us to where, and I've identified a source when we went through this exercise that likely, nobody wants to pay more, but as John pointed out, if we can say what we're gonna do with these dollars, I think it's gonna be better received.
My question that I asked a few minutes ago, was you said, let's do this a dedicated portion to street. What's the other portion going for?
It's already we're putting the new portion, so basically,
So
that
100%
20
of the additional will go towards street preservation. Is that-
yes,
that's what
it's
I-
512.
Yeah. I get it.
So what we're raising it is going into, and then we're passing a resolution. As it grows, we're taking 20% of the total, and it's going to, as Mark asked, it's going to grow, but but asphalt's not gonna get cheaper and more road miles are gonna exist.
I'd say like everybody, we need to have to pay more, but there's a cost to operate the city, and you have to understand.
So this isn't a budget item, but this is a policy directive. Are you comfortable with adding this to the policy directive? And I hear Jay's comment. Ideally, we're doing this at the same time when we have the information related to the utility, whether or not we're gonna raise utility rates. And maybe we soften this if we're looking, I haven't had any indication that we need vast increases. We're adding customers. We've got a lot of, connection charges. I'll be shocked if there's significant increases. Now, if we're looking to provide, remember, it's a bucket of dollars, and we're hearing complaints that the seniors and these folks over here, the low end users shouldn't pay so much. If you make that policy directive, then these folks over here, Sean is
That's
beautiful
a
green
utility
lawn.
rate issue. That's not a utility taxes.
Correct, no, but Jay's question was, we're talking about our rates.
Right.
We shouldn't talk about it independently of this discussion, because
No, I-
both of these impact pocketbooks. So, all right, let's take a lunch break, if you're okay with that.
Except Sean, you can't take it.
Sean?
Haven't heard it yet.